Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Um, there's a few reasons why I'm super excited. One, because I get to be with the Summit community again, some of my favorite people on this planet, so thank you for having me. Two, because we're in Ojai, at the Ojai Valley Inn, which is a place that's definitely dear to my heart. I've been coming here for like over 20 years with my wife to just like chill and relax, so it's like doing this here with you at this vibe and in the farmhouse here is like amazing. And then the third thing is that I get to share with you the thing I'm most passionate about in life, and that is working with energy and the energy system and the energy body. And so I'm curious how many of you have some experience working with what energy work, working with energy practitioners, doing some kind of, okay, great. And then how many of you never have done anything that you would consider like working with energy? Right? Okay, so a number of you. Well, this week you're going to get an immersion. I'm going to take you on a journey here. And my goal or objective is to help you really experience and understand better the role that energy plays in virtually every facet of our lives. And this ranges from like the health of our body to our emotions to our psychology and our ability to focus. It goes to our sense of mission and our sense of purpose. I mean, energy is integrated into every single aspect. And even just to get here today, right? You had to get up and you had to think. And that took glucose. Your brain needed to burn in order to have those thoughts occur. Then you had to get in your car and you had to drive here if you drove here, right? And when you drove here, you had to burn fuel. Even if you have an electric vehicle, that you still had to charge it in somewhere. That energy was needed to fill that battery, right? So every single thing that happens in our lives, every single action that we take, every single thought that we have requires energy to make it happen. And what I've been able to experience and see and work with over decades, and it's been like 27 years now that I've been working with people. Originally, I was trained as a chiropractor, so that's my background is chiropractic. And over the past 25 plus years, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the highest performers in the world, really in virtually every, Olympic gold medalists. I've worked with some of the top performing artists and entertainers in the world. I've been a personal practitioner for Tony Robbins for like 18 years, traveled around the world with him. And just people in finance, entrepreneurs that are world renowned. So it's really exciting for me to see how much excitement people have and how much interest people have when it comes to this area of energy. I was just talking to David here right before I started. This is his first Summit event, so let's welcome David. And he's a tenured professor, and he and I were talking about energy, and we were just talking about how it's amazing in the last decade how much more open people are. And we're talking about, in the Harvard Business Review or these different publications, leadership, and we're talking about energy and emotions and the psychology and the mental health. But energy is now like it's on the table, and it's okay to talk about in some of these areas where it didn't bleed over. Energy was like this woo-woo thing that you did out there. It wasn't part of, our reality, and you went and saw this energy practitioner sort of on the sly. And even David and I were talking, and he's got this medical intuitive that he's working with who's like across the world, and he's like, she's just spot on all these things. And once you have that experience, how many of you had that experience working with someone who you were like, wow, like I don't know what is happening here or how this is working, but something is on here. Like this is actually real, right? And so today, I want to expose you to a map or a model. So there's going to be some foundation that I'm setting. So as we go through the week, there's going to be a lot of process and exercises. I'm going to talk a little bit more today. And if you need to, if you're sitting and you're a little uncomfortable sitting, lay down, or there's some chairs in the back if you need to move your body. I'm also going to get you up, and we're going to be moving our bodies. But for a little bit here, I'm going to be setting some framework. What I've noticed in my journey over the decades in working with people, and this is from the highest of highest performers to people that are struggling with addiction and people that are, had loss of loved ones, loss of children, paralysis. I mean, everything. I've seen this really wide range of human experience. it's kind of uniquely qualified me to be able to see these patterns. And the patterns that we're going to be working with, I call the energetic blueprint, because everybody has a unique way of working with energy. Everybody has a unique style, and they have a unique experience of energy. Some people see it more, some people feel it, some people hear it. Some people, it's like a smell, or some people it's a taste. There are these, what we call synesthesias. There's different ways that the nervous system processes. So as we go into the processes this week, I want to open you up that the experience of energy and how we're working with energy can be quite different for each of you. And so I want to invite you to explore, to experience, and just open your mind and open your heart. And we're going to be doing this together. We're here together. We're supporting each other, and I'm just stoked to be here. I'm pumped. So let's get on with the journey here. So I want to share this first off. This is the moment when the egg is fertilized, the moment that the sperm meets the egg. And this is from research at MIT. They've revealed, and this is very, very recent, patterns of spiraling energy waves at the moment the egg is fertilized. And these spirals they don't know yet, where are they coming from? What's organizing this? Why are these spirals of energy the first thing that ripples through before the form and structure emerges? But energy is the foundation of everything, energy and information. And so as we're really working with these fundamental forces that actually begin at the very, very beginning. They're here before we have a body, and they're going to be here after we have a body. So while we're here with this body, wouldn't it be wise and wouldn't it be interesting to learn how to optimize how we work with these energies? You guys on board? Yeah. On board? Okay. So this is a map also from MIT. This is a map, computer generated, of the Gulf Stream over the Atlantic Ocean. Very similar to those waves that we were seeing in the egg. Then you have this from the James Webb Telescope, right? What are the forms of these galaxies and these structures that we're seeing out in the cosmos? All spiral, vortexes, right? What's happening when the sperm meets the egg, what's happening in our bodies, and what we're going to see as we get into the foundation, like the structure of the energy anatomy, is that it's all the same stuff over and over and over. And these are universal principles, and once we recognize that and we start to harness that, it can dramatically change literally every area of our lives. It could change our bodies, it can change our minds, it can change our emotions, it can change our relationships, it can change the way that we approach work, it can change our creativity. But it's accessing that energy and that information that is beyond us, but is also within us. That's part of us, but at the same time is something that we can interact with, something that allows us to make shifts and changes that dismantle the illusion of solidity and open up to new possibilities. So, isn't it interesting that we've been carving our ancestors for thousands and thousands of years, spiraling vortexes that look just like the same thing that when the sperm meets the egg, right? It's encoded in our DNA, it's encoded in our energy fields, it's part of who we are. And the very universe that we live in, the very galaxy that we live in, the Milky Way, what shape is it? A spiraling vortex, right? And the interesting thing about it is that we look at and we think about the universe around us and the material world around us, because this is what we're interfacing with, we're interacting with. We see this person, we touch this person, we're walking on this ground, everything appears fairly solid, but the truth is it's only 4.6% solidity of the whole universe. The atoms that make up, all of the atoms in the universe is less than 5% of the content of the universe. The rest, the remaining 95.4%, is dark energy and dark matter. What is that? Dark energy and dark matter are forms of energy, basically. We don't know what they are. We don't have instruments or tools yet to measure that. So we're really talking about, when we're talking about measuring and looking at the things that we can measure with in the material world and with the body and the energies in the body that we can measure, we're looking at only about less than 5%. So there's a lot of mystery here left to be revealed and left to be left a mystery. And so I'm going to invite you, as we move into this process today and this week, to just begin to suspend that illusion that things are solid. Because really, even the things that are solid, even the less than 5% of the atoms at the subatomic level, what are they? What is it? At the subatomic level, it's all energy too. It's vortexes, it's vibrations and oscillations of energy in states of various probabilities. There is nothing really actually solid at all. Not until you measure and interact, and then there's the collapse of the quantum wave, it's called, and then you get some kind of like experience of a solidity. But everything is fields, and it's all, even every particle that we're interacting with, every atom that we're interacting with is part of a field, a larger field. And we're going to talk about fields. We're going to talk about the fundamentals of the energy system. So let's get into it. But first, let's just go into what even is energy. Well, we don't exactly know. We know it in physics, it's described as the ability to do work, right? So if you have a lot of energy available to you, you can do more work. And whatever that work is, whether that work is in connecting with your partner and having a conversation that's challenging and you have to get over that, that threshold and you need enough energy to do it, whether it's the energy to activate a part of your brain or part of your mind that can access the ability to think creatively and innovate something, whether it's the ability to just get up and move your body and step, it's the ability to do work, and you need enough energy to do anything. Does that make sense? The second piece is how much potential a system has to change. It's another definition for energy. Energy is the currency of the universe. It is exchanged and transferred in every single interaction that we have, right? And the more energy that's in the system, the more potential it has to change. But when it comes to human biology and it comes to the human consciousness, you need to have a certain level of awareness with that energy for the system to have the potential to change. Because if you have bound up energy in your body, like tension in your muscles, tension in the organs, the architecture of your body's holding a bunch of tension, you're in fight or flight and protection and survival, you've got potential energy, but if you don't have access to it, you can't use it, right? You can't utilize that energy for expression. You can't utilize that energy for action if it's bound up. So part of the process we're going to go through is we're going to be connecting into the free sources of energy. Where is energy flowing? Where is it free? Where is it open? Where can you access it? Where is it like, oh, that's easy? And then we're going to visit some places where maybe energy's bound up, where it's got the potential to change your system and all the systems that you're interacting with, but maybe you haven't been able to get access to it because you haven't had the awareness. So sometimes we need to go into stillness, need to go into receiving mode, and we need to feel and sense and experience, and then energy gets liberated and now it's available and we can use it. Does that make sense? So tension, physical pain, tension that you can't seem to shake. Anyone have that? Some tension in your back or neck or some part of your body where you just can't seem to shake. It's just kind of always there, right? We almost all have some areas that it's like we can't quite get to. So part of the process I'm going to take you through this week is starting to learn how to access some of those places, to bring awareness, to bring a new source of energy and new information so that place can now become a source of energy for you. Because it really is potential energy there, but you can't use it unless you can access it. So we're going to be doing some exploration and discovery. And so when we're working with energy, we're working with all kinds of energy. There's energy that we can measure, right? So there's energy that we can measure, and it comes in the form of brain waves. We can measure with EEG. We can measure the heart and the waves that are created by the heart and the energy, the electromagnetic field of the heart. That's with electrocardiography. We can measure with EMG, that's surface electromyography. We can measure the muscle system, and we can tell how much energy is moving or how much energy is built up in certain regions of the muscles. We can measure thermography. We can measure how much heat. We can find you in the forest hiding because we can feel where, we can read the thermal radiation that's coming off your body. We can also measure light in the visible spectrum coming off your body. We are light beings. We really are. It's called biophoton emission, and you can measure light in the visible spectrum that's radiating. That image there on the far lower right is of light radiating out of someone's body in total darkness. It's like 1,000 times below the visible spectrum. Like it's in the visible spectrum, but it's below the eye's ability to see it. But we're literally radiating light. And then you have the immeasurable energies. And so we're going to be working on a combination of the measurable and the immeasurable. So what are the immeasurable energies? This is when you get into the like, ooh, the subtle, right? We call it the subtle body or subtle energies. And these are also called putative energies. Putative essentially means assumed to exist. So in the scientific world, we talk about veritable energies, which are verifiable. We can measure them with instrumentation. Putative energies are energies that are assumed to exist, and they've been discussed and talked about for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and people have these experiences of some kind of subjective shift or change. How many of you have felt this in your life, right? A shift or change in your own energy or someone's energy, and you go, whoa, I know everything is different now. I know that, like, I can feel you energetically shifted, or I can feel this shifted in myself and nothing's the same, right? That's this area. That's the subtle energy. And in the Vedic tradition and the yogic tradition, they call it the koshas. And this goes back to the Upanishads, like 6th century. They were talking about the koshas. The kosh, anyone heard of that term? Okay, yeah, of course this group, I figured. The koshas are considered the energy sheaths that are subtle consciousness and energy that exist around the body, and they also permeate the body. And each of these sheaths or layers is associated with different depths of consciousness. And the further out you go, or the further in you go, the more depth of consciousness you access. So you go from like the food sheath, the physicality, you go to the life force, then you go out to the emotional, then you go into the mental, then you go into these higher transcendent consciousness states. And it's more and more subtle and more spacious and less solid and more depth of experience. So we're going to be exploring an element of like how I teach this, but it ties into, again, all of these different terminologies that have come from all these different cultures around the world for centuries. Nothing is new here. It's all, we've been working with this in every culture for thousands and thousands of years, these energies. So these are the subtle energies, the subtle body. And really the subtle body is an energized consciousness or conscious energy. And here's the thing with consciousness, and David and I were also talking about this in our quick chat. We went pretty deep. Consciousness is non-local, right? It's called the hard problem in physics. Consciousness does not have a location in the brain. You can cut open the brain and you can find the synapses, you can see the neurons, you can see electrical current, you can see fields of neurons firing off, you can look at the biochemistry, but you cannot find David in there. You cannot find Sarah in there. You cannot not find John in there. You can't find Craig in there. He's not in there. Where are you, Craig? Sarah, where is he? You're right. Your consciousness is not relegated to any location. And that's going to be important for the processes, because for some of you, sometimes we've lived enculturated that we're inside our body looking out at the world, that somehow we are inside our brain. And the truth is we're not. The truth is we extend out. We extend out beyond the body. We extend out infinitely. We're infinite beings. We're limitless beings. Consciousness does not have a location. It's infinite. So knowing that conceptually that it's infinite is one thing. Feeling or experiencing that. How many of you have had some experience, some spiritual experience, some experience where you were like, I am, right? Just isness, oneness, right? And so we're going to use that because as consciousness organizes, it's the energy and the information that's organizing the structure, and the foundation of our body is not this solid thing that we're inside of, but it's something that we're interacting with, and it's malleable and changeable. You've got a new body every few years. All the cells are replaced, all the bones are replaced, all the soft tissues are replaced, all the organs are replaced, and you're just in this constant relationship with the environment and the people around us, and it's all changing. And as once we recognize that and we start to feel that and sense that and be able to work with that, things that felt so static and so rigid and so hard and so locked, they just begin to melt away, and changes can happen so rapidly. So how many of you are familiar with David Hawkins? David Hawkins, like Power versus Force, right? A very popular book by a psychologist who was a very awake being. And Hawkins talked about the scale of human consciousness and related to energy. And I wanted to bring it up here because it's so relevant. Here we are all together in Summit, this amazing group of people all coming together, and we are you wouldn't be in this room and you wouldn't be interested in this conversation if you weren't already at a certain like depth or level of consciousness where this made sense somehow to you that you're like, oh, I'm drawn to this. Hawkins said that he created a scale from 0 to 1,000. 0 would be the lowest consciousness, which he called shame. Shame is the lowest human consciousness, according to Hawkins. And then you go up that scale, and each kind of organization or level of consciousness as you grow up the scale gets exponentially stronger, more power, more energy, but it also has more impact in the world. So you have shame, then it goes to guilt, then apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, and then when you finally hit courage, which is 200 on that scale, a huge shift happens. Hawkins talked about everything below 200 on this scale of consciousness, energy and consciousness, is taking from the world. It is taking resources and taking energy. So your energy vampires, your people that are constantly in themselves, constantly wanting, constantly needing, it's just not enough, I need more, I want to take this, I want to take that. About 80% of the world, according to Hawkins, is at this level still. Taking resources. When you hit this level of courage in your consciousness, your baseline becomes, I'm no longer locked into my conditioning, and I'm going to start to discover for myself who I am and develop myself. And then you begin to move up, and you move up into this willingness to participate and this acceptance of other people just as they are, and then you move up into a point where you begin to, and the potential is that you would hit unconditional love. And unconditional love, well, first of all, about 20% of the world then is really operating. So pretty much everyone here is operating. You're all over 200, right? So you're all contributing. You're not taking. And when we come together, there's an exponential power in the coming together. So we're actually contributing. Just the fact that we're gathering and coming together already is rippling out. It's a huge amount of energy just rippling out. We're creating a field. And we know this field of Summit because you come here and you're just like, it's like I can tell all the Summit people walking around. Right, you can all feel this, right? You're walking around, you can tell like who's in the program and who's not. You could just feel that like we're connected into this invisible field of Summit. So 20% of the world is contributing, and then if you hit unconditional love and you actually live there, there's like a very, very small percentage, maybe less than 2% of the world is really living there, then you would counterbalance just by your energy, just by you being incarnated. You would counterbalance like 10 million people that are operating below 200. So when we're talking about energy, it isn't just about, we can use this energy to make ourselves be able to do these things better. We're talking about our resonant quality that we radiate out of our beings that then influences the world and impacts just because we exist. And yes, what we're doing is important, but even more important is what energy are we bringing to it? What's our consciousness and how are we showing up? Does that make sense? So does this resonate with like what everyone's into here? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I want to go through the human energy system and the main pillars of the human energy system, and we're going to do some practice and exercise, and then we're going to go into the end of this. It's going to be all process. So human energy system really has, and this is the artwork of Alex Gray, for those of you. I think he does an amazing job at depicting this. The three main kind of components of the human energy system are the fields, the channels, and the centers. So the fields, the channels, and the centers. Now, they're called lots and lots of things in lots of different traditions, and a lot of times people are like, no, we know that it's called meridians, it's called these, it's not, you're wrong. Look, everyone's really talking about the same stuff, just using different language. I think you break it down into three elements. You have the fields that are surrounding and permeating our bodies, you have the channels that are like within the body, and then you have the energy of the centers, which we're going to explore. All right, so let's talk about energy fields first. There's a little delay on this, so I'm going to wait for that slide to come up. Okay. So this is a piece by this guy, Lewis Hernan, who's a PhD student in the UK, and he did this interesting project. He created an app where people's cell phones will change colors, so the whole screen changes different colors depending on the signal strength of the Wi-Fi field around them. And so they move the field around, he does a long exposure, and then you get to see that's what the fluctuations in the field of Wi-Fi around the person looks like, right? So I wanted to show you this because there's these invisible forces that we're bathed in all the time, and there are all kinds of fields, electromagnetic fields, and then there are other subtle fields that we can't measure. These are like the subtle body, and these fields are energy and information that's both around us and within us, right? And it's invisible. So our fields that our body generates, our biological kind of Wi-Fi, if you will, is called the biofield. Anyone heard that term, biofield, before? So it's the biofield is the energy field that our body is generating. Part of it's variable, so we can measure it. We can measure the electromagnetic field of the heart like several feet off. And we can measure things like brain waves, et cetera. But there's other aspects we can't measure. It's like more of a sensing and a feeling. And so the biofield, it's like having a Wi-Fi router inside your body that radiates out beyond. Just like if you have a Wi-Fi router in this room, it's going to go through the walls, it's going to go out beyond the walls, and you can pick up that field outside. Does that make sense? So it's not relegated to within our bodies. So these fields are like an invisible blueprint. And the invisible blueprint is shaping and organizing how the structures of the cells and how the functions of the cells are going to work. So this is a tadpole. Okay? This tadpole has an interesting thing going on. It has an eyeball right here coming out of its tail. And the reason it has an eyeball coming out of its tail is because a group led by Michael Levin at Tufts University is doing research on the bioelectric field, and they are interfering with the field and tweaking the field as the tadpole is developing, and they can get a functional eyeball to grow out of its tail. They're morphing how the cells organize into shape, form, and function by changing the field within and around this organism. So this is how real this is. When we're working with these energy fields, we're not like, oh, it's just this fake thing. We're working with the field that's organizing and shaping our entire body and is affecting every facet of our being, from our thoughts to our emotions to our vision to our vision for what's possible to our ability to innovate and create, right? So this is where, again, where David and I were talking, it's like the research that's happening, the interest in this area. This is becoming now something that academia is starting to really look at, because it's like, oh, well, we just found out that plants, when they're photosynthesizing, they are forming at room temperature what's called a Bose-Einstein condensate for any physics people, right? The photosynthesis is basically occurring in this superfluid quality, where everything is happening everywhere at once with no friction, no loss of energy, and it's like one system, one cell. And we have that in our bodies. We're a liquid crystal, technically. And energy and information is traveling everywhere at once. And we're going to tap into that liquid crystal. You know, a liquid crystal is like an LCD. If you go up and touch this screen, it's going to kind of ripple out. So an LCD screen is like all these, it's a kind of a fluid, crystalline structure. The body's that. And light and energy and sound waves and all this stuff's moving through it, and we're going to interact with that stuff. So these fields ripple and radiate out beyond our body, kind of like the nested Russian dolls, right? The densest part is the physical body in the middle. The fields are radiating out beyond, but they're not like things. Think of it like a rainbow, right? You have different frequencies of energy, and those frequencies of energy are seen by the eye as different colors. So the fields that are around our body are like that. They're like different bandwidths or frequencies, and each of those frequencies has different effects on the physical system, how we think, how we feel, how we act. And as we interact with those, it gets cool, because we can start to interact with, just like what Michael Levin research, where they're tweaking and making eyeballs grow out of you, we can interact with our field and make our body shift and change and have different experiences that happen, not because we're going right to our body, but because we're going into that field. So those fields, and who was in Michaela's talk, who was in there, right? What was she talking about? She was talking about the toroidal flow, right? Okay, I missed that, but I heard something about toroidal flow, and I was like, I couldn't get in there to see it. But this is the same. These fields are toroidal in nature, and you can see they're nested within each other. And the nested field organization is how the energy system is set up. And it goes into our body infinitely and out infinitely. So this is what I said, consciousness is non-local and it's infinite. You can go as deep within as you can go as far out. And this is going to be useful as we're going through some of the processes this week, because we can go out, 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 and expand and expand and expand. And that, because it's a toroidal loop, it loops us back into the center. And when we go deep, deep, deep into the center, it loops us back out into the infinite. And this just happens to be a little interface right here, this body. This is our interface. It's like the touch screen to the universe. So we're going to act and utilize and access all the hardware. I mean, think about it. The Wi-Fi and the routers and everything that you're accessing, it's not inside your phone. That's just an antenna. And the interface, the touch screen, is how you're accessing. So that's how we're going to work with our energy system in our body as the touch screen to the universe. Are you up for that? So we're going to be interacting in a moment. I'm going to have you connecting with each other into the fields around your body. And the fields, right now in this room, we're all intersecting. Our fields go out many, many feet beyond our body, right? Just the measurable part, you can measure several feet or more off the body. HeartMath has done, have any of you heard of HeartMath or done anything with HeartMath, right? So HeartMath organization has done quite a bit of work in this area in research, and they recognize that you broadcast out through your, whether you're coherent or you're not coherent, you're dissonant in your brain and your heart, you broadcast that out into the field around your body, and people pick that up. And you can feel whether someone's or, ooh, I want to like groove in with that person, you know? And you can feel that whether someone's in appreciation, just look at what the waveforms look like. Heart rate variability is like, oh, it's nice and smooth. Or when someone's irritated, and here's the cool thing. People that are in a more coherent state, more gratitude, more appreciation, truly in that in sync, they have more influence on the people around them to pull them into a more resonant state with them. So that's part of the beauty of a community like this too, is that you're all syncing off of each other and pulling each other and elevating each other up. We're all doing this together. So what I want you to do is I want you to turn and just grab a partner. Just find someone sitting next to you, and just turn, introduce yourself. And we're going to do a little exercise here. You can do 3, sure. You can do 2, you can do 3. Okay, so does anybody need a partner? Raise your hand if you need a partner. We got one over here, two, right, partner for you. Anyone else need a partner? Okay, so, all right, listen up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by connecting with each other at the physical interface, at the body. So just put your hands out, and if your shoulders are hurting you or anything, like, because we're going to be holding these positions for a little bit, you can put your hands one on top of the other. You can put your hands facing each other, like patty cake is the best. But if you can move closer to each other, if you need to relax your shoulders. And I want you to push a little bit back and forth and just get a sense of this person. And notice how much information you get just about them. Are they relaxed? Is there tension? What is your sensory system picking up, about the feeling of this person? And how do you feel in yourself when you're touching hands with this person? Just acknowledging that and acknowledging the just the sacredness of this being in front of you. And what I want you to do is we're going to separate our hands very, very slowly. And I want you to imagine you're going to separate them just to the point where it feels like Velcro pulling apart. You're still touching, but you're almost not touching. And you're going to feel like something in that space. We're talking like millimeters off the body, where we're almost touching, but not quite. And then I want you to move your hands around a little bit, kind of like air hockey, right? Sliding your hands a little bit across each other, up and down. And just notice what you sense, feel. Some of you, it might be kinesthetic. You really feel something in your body. Some of you might be like, oh, I see something. I hear something. If you're got your hands here and you're looking for something, you're like, I'm looking for it and I don't feel it. I'm looking for it. Relax and just receive. Your sensory system is built to receive. That means you don't have to push out to find it. You just allow any kind of sensation or quality to come to you. So you're now about millimeter or two, almost touching. You're kind of sliding off. And now take your hands and just press them back together gently. Okay, now notice the difference when you press them together and then when you take them apart. Pull them apart again, and then move them around a little bit and stay right in that plane. Almost touching, not quite touching, moving around. And just get a sense of is there anything that you notice that feels like in the space? Magnetism, electricity. Does it feel like it's pulling you in or pushing you away? Is there something you feel in your body, in your heart, in your head? Is there something that you see? Good. And you can if your shoulders are bothering you or anything, you can drop them down. Just relax. And then put your hands together again. So now you're going to touch again. So now we're going to come apart again a little bit, like about a millimeter or two, and feel that space again. Now this is the interface right where the fields interface with the physicality, where the subtle and the physical come together. We call this the bioenergy or the life force. So oftentimes it has a hum or a buzz, it has a vibration, it might see it as a color, it might have a feeling of like heat or warmth or magnetism to it. It might push you away or pull you in. And now I want you to like expand that a little so you're pulling away from each other slightly, and see if you can pull away from each other to about 2-3 inches away and stay connected to the person. Now remember, you don't have to like try to do it through your hands. You can just relax because your whole being is feeling this. Your hands are like a stethoscope. It's amplifying what's going on. So notice as you pull away a little bit, see if you can notice when the quality changes a little bit or a lot. It might go from more of a buzz to kind of a warbly sort of motion feeling, or it might get really like hot, or it might get really loud, kind of vibratory, or it might get really quiet, or you might lose that connection. And I want you to just sense that. You're in the emotional body now. So we're in the life force, and as we move out a little bit, we move more into the emotional body. Now, some people it's very robust and alive, and some people it's very kind of quiet. And it's a sense of this something in the space that is out beyond us. And so just go ahead and bring your hands closer together, come back till you're touching again, and then focus just on the physicality for a moment. And notice when you focus on the physical, did all of that sort of something in the space just sort of disappear, or did you retain a little bit? Usually it disappears, especially when we first start working with it. It's like we're totally physical, and then we're like, whoa, in this space, and then we come back and we're totally physical again. So this time I want you to come apart a little bit, and I want you to ride that interface right where the physical and the life force sort of come. So you're coming off the body, but you're retaining a sense of presence with your own body and their body, and at the same time, you're sensing something in that space. So you have a kind of a bridging of the two things. The subtle body, the energetic, and then the physicality. You're grounded and you're connected at the same time. And this is an interesting place. Like for anyone who does body work or anyone who receives body work, when someone is connected with you in a way where or making love with someone and they're connected to this energy and your body at the same time, it takes it to a whole nother level. Sometimes if you just go physical, you miss the whole energy. And sometimes if you're too energetic and you don't engage with the physical, you also miss the person. So we want to get both here. So come back together. And this time when you come back together slowly so your hands are touching. And then you just play a little bit where you keep the physical connection and you spread your hands out away a little bit. And you almost create like this Velcro feeling where they're almost stuck together and they're pulling apart. And you kind of push together. Anyone getting that sense of like, hey, there's something kind of attracting and holding here, and at the same time I can kind of float in it. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to go out. Now keep that connection and that sense. Again, some of you, if your shoulders are hurting, you can always drop your hands down and put one on top of the other because we're holding this, it's like an isometric here. So yeah, shake your body, move your body. We don't need to this isn't a Pilates class. So, all right, so now we're going to go back together again. So hands together. And when your hands touch, notice how much more present you are to that person's energy when your hands touch this time. Because we're starting to calibrate this. We're starting to activate this sense of, oh, I feel that energy that's around you, but I also feel the space and I feel the groundedness. And then I want you to imagine a grid of energy that is all through your entire body, and also a grid of energy that's through their entire body. Imagine like a hologram of their body, grids or filaments of fibers of energy that are going everywhere. And as you're touching your hands right here, that you are actually touching into that entire grid. So you get a sense of their whole, like you're dipping into the matrix here, and you're feeling their whole energy system, at least their bioenergy. And it's like, oh, I can feel their whole body, their whole being through this one contact, this one point of contact. Beautiful. Now, go ahead and start to pull your hands apart a little bit. And as you pull your hands apart, go further this time, but keep that thread of connection, almost like threads of energy or filaments are between your fingertips, and start just pulling back. And pull back slowly as far as you still feel connected to the person. It could be a few inches, it could be a few feet. Sometimes people need to get up and walk to the other side of the room because it's so strong. So let's just see. Just keep pulling back. And one of you might feel it more than the other, or maybe both of you feel it. And just play around here and just see, how far away can I bring my hands? And try this. Feel with your heart. Your hands are there, but your heart is the receptor. And just see what happens. You open yourself up and you just be receptive and you go, how far can I move away from this person and still feel that vibration, that energy, that aliveness, that presence, that connection in some way, shape, or form? Good. And then just play with it now. See, I see some of you already starting to play with this. Start to see what happens. Have one of you be the receiver and one of you be the sender here, and just decide who it is real quick. Who's going to receive first? And then the sender is gonna the receiver. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes, and when you close your eyes, I want the sender to make a shape, a spiral, either clockwise or counterclockwise, and the other person's hands will be outstretched. And see if the other person could get a sense of the spiraling or the motion, if you can feel which hand it is maybe, or if it's both hands. And just notice if it feels like a magnet, if it feels like it's pulling or pushing. And notice for many of you, you're going to feel it's like, wow, I can really feel that. That we can sense these fluctuations that are changing in the magnetic field around us and the subtle field around us. Good. And then switch. So the other person gets to receive and the other person's the giver. And you kind of put your hands out and you just start to make toward their hands, start to spiral one way, spiral the other way. Just see if you play with this and you sense, can I feel this magnetism? Can I feel a vibration? Do I feel a connection? Do I feel a space? Did I lose them somehow? Sometimes when someone goes kind of more into their head, we kind of go, where'd they go? And it's like this is so amplified when we're doing this in this giving, receiving mode. That's beautiful. I see lots of spiraling going on. Beautiful. Okay, good. Now, go ahead and come back together with your hands so that your hands are now come all the way back into touching. So, right, we've amplified. We're playing in this field and we're starting to condition it. We're conditioning the space around us to be we're more attentive to it. Now, as your hands come back together, all the way back together, kind of press them into each other and then see what happens. So we're going to do something a little different. I want you to let your awareness sink toward each other. So you're going to let your awareness sink about a millimeter or two underneath their skin. So you're kind of sinking or melting toward each other very gently, and you're going to feel yourself finding that life force, that energy field, like inside the body. Because it's sandwiching, it's both inside and outside. So as you press toward each other a little bit, you sink or melt into each other, and you'll just feel, oh, okay, about that depth or about that level. And then from that little sinking in, start to pull your hands very, very, very slowly apart now that you've sunk in. And notice as you try to pull them apart, it might feel a little bit like more sticky, like, oh, I'm connected to them. And now pull them apart a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and just feel the density of that energy. What happens as we put the focus and the energy and the awareness on the energy field around and within, it gets more dense, it gets more real. It's the skin of the energy around us. And now start coming back together and just touch your hands again. And then go ahead and thank your partner. And let's just take a moment. I want you to take like a minute here just to share and discuss your experience. What did you notice? And just talk about it with each other. What did you feel? What did you notice? Okay. Again, thank your partners. Start to wrap it up, and we're going to move into the next. So that's the very, very beginning of moving into the energy fields. The fields that are around us and the fields they sandwich. I said that these fields are they're within us and they're all around us. It's like that Wi-Fi that is from within the body and it goes all the way out beyond the body. So the second element here of the energy system is what we call the energy channels. So energy fields are that invisible field of force and information and somethingness that's both around us and within us. How many of you felt something going on? Yeah, I figured this group. Yeah, question?
How do you make the transition? Like, for example, when we had our eyes closed, transmitting the energy also changed the colors in our minds. Like, I could feel like
So
colors were coming in. It wasn't just a feeling or an energy that I felt, but
yeah.
it was also the colors were shifting.
So her question was, I didn't get the full formulated question, but she said that she noticed when she was interacting that all these colors were shifting, right? It wasn't just like a feeling, it was all these color shifts. Anyone have that, like colors that they saw, something visual, right? So that's a visual processing of energy. Like your system picks up that information and it transmits it through. So you can see, but not through your eyes. You can hear, but not through your ears. You can smell, but not through your nose. Like the way that we process energy is different for each person. And that is one, obviously, so you take note and go, oh, that's interesting. Sometimes I've had conversations with people, they're like, well, I didn't feel anything. And then they're like, but I saw, and then they tell me this whole story of all these things they saw. Well, I'm like, okay, well, that is a way that you're registering and processing energy. So that's just the way. So it's good to note because sometimes people are like trying to feel something and their style is not through their body in that way. It's more of a knowing or sensing or seeing. Yeah. So when it comes to the energy channels are known by many different names, but most people know them as the meridians. When we think of like getting acupuncture or getting acupressure, right? This is in the Chinese medicine system and some of the esoteric practices of the Buddhists and Taoists, et cetera, for thousands and thousands of years, they talk about these meridians that run through the body. And these meridians are these channels of energy. And what we're starting to actually see as some of the scientists are starting to look at this, is that it appears that the meridians may be like biophoton, like light traveling through the connective tissues, the fascia systems of the body. And that it isn't like a channel that's like a blood vessel, but it's something that actually happens as we interact with these energies. It's something that is actually it's like the channel is created in the fascia matrix as sound waves, acoustic waves, light, energy and information, and these quantum processes that are going on are happening, and it's sort of organizing itself into these channels. And the more you work with them and the more you put your focus on them, the more developed they get. So this is why all of these practices, like in yoga and all these meditative practices, you are working with energy centers, you're working with the energy channels, and you're like psychically working with them, because as you put more focus and attention there, they develop more. And so we're going to be working with that in a moment. So the meridians are one. And then you have in the yoga tradition, they're called nadis. So nadis, anyone heard that term? Nadis. Yeah. But the nadis, so it's been taught for thousands of years that there are between 72,000 to 88,000 of these nadis, these channels of consciousness and energy that run through the body. Whereas the fields are permeating the body and they're around the body, the nadis or the meridians are the channels that run through the body. And they're running it's like a vascular system or a nervous system, but of energy flow, of consciousness and energy. And you can travel through them with your mind. You travel through them with your consciousness. And you can use breath and movement to amplify them, which we'll do momentarily. So going back, again, thousands of years, the three main channels that are said to exist are what's called the Ida Pingala and the Sushumna Nadi, right? So these are when someone has a kundalini rising, when someone has an awakening, and energy starts surging up through. It's said that that snake, the coiled serpent of the Kundalini energy, like energy just going up through and penetrating each of the energy centers and moving its way up to the crown, there's an activation from these lower energy centers up into these higher ones, that's part of the process of awakening and the unfoldment and the evolution of us as human beings. And so the Iddhipagala and Sushumna, when we start to put attention and focus on that central channel, we start to awaken that. Then energy can start to rise up from the base and all the way up to the top. And when that is activated, then it changes the nature of how you operate in the world, and it changes your consciousness as well. So has anyone had experiences of this Kundalini? Yeah, of course, this group. I knew it. I expected it. So I want to take you through a process right now of just feeling, sensing, and beginning to activate the energy centers. And we're going to do some foundational exercises that have been around for thousands of years that come out of Qigong, really. Has anyone practiced Qigong, right? Okay, so some of you, great. So these are some very foundational practices. You don't need to have any knowledge of Qigong or anything else, because we're talking about activating the channels within your body. So I want to have you stand up for this, and I'll stand up here for this. So we're going to do a simple exercise to help open up and connect with the central channel, the sushumna, or the central channel that goes between the root and all the way up to the top of the crown. And to do this, I want you to stand with your feet shoulder width apart, your toes slightly pointed toward each other, a couple degrees, and then you're going to squeeze your inner thighs a little bit, like you're making an Eiffel Tower, like at the top of in your adductors here, and then you're going to squeeze your glutes a little bit. So you have this sense, you'll have a sense of a little bit of like kind of rotation, like a corkscrewing, and you'll kind of pull in and you feel a tightening here, and you feel your glutes a little bit tight. You ever feel like it kind of like roots you? You feel that? And it pulls your weight and your energy out of your kind of midsection, and it brings it down more into your femur heads. So this is where we want our kind of center to be, down right in here. So you can put your fingertips at your hip joints, wiggle around a little bit like this, and feel this. You can go either way, it doesn't matter. Just to feel like, where are the hips? Where are the balls in the sockets of my hips, okay? And then once you've kind of found that, then come back in, squeeze the inner thighs a little bit, and squeeze your glutes a little bit. And then I want you to just put your tongue at the tip of the roof of your mouth. So the tip of your tongue at the roof of the mouth, the top of your mouth, like that. And then we're going to just sit here like this, and we're going to focus on this central channel of the body. So imagine this column or stream like a cylinder that's going up through, and imagine energy coming up through it. And as you breathe in, you're going to breathe in through your nose. You don't have to pull the energy, it just will rise. You don't have to do anything, just inhale. And as you inhale, as you breathe in through your nose, and you guide and imagine energy going all the way up, kind of feel it or see it or sense it going up through the top of your crown. And then as it comes back down, exhaling out through your nose, imagine that energy kind of falling down through where your tongue is touching the roof of your mouth, and it goes all the way down through the front of your spine, and then it wraps or loops around underneath your crotch and then back up the spine. And we're going to do a few repetitions of this. It's called microcosmic orbit. This is a drawing up of energy. So go in through the nose, tongue at the roof of the mouth as you breathe in, and then imagine it going up to the top of the crown and then washing down through, and then looping around and then coming back up through the center, through that central channel. Breath in through the nose, and then up, and then let it fall. And then down. And then loop it again, in through the nose, and draw the energy up, and then down that channel. Let it fall. Good. Now, that's microcosmic orbit. So that activates that central channel. It activates the energy flow in the body. Some of you are feeling it intensely. Some of you are like, I don't know. Do I feel it? Do I see it? It doesn't matter. This is the process. That there's all these intricacies that we can like dial it in more and more, but this is the foundation of it. In through the nose, out through the nose, drawing the energy up. Imagining it come to the top of the crown, falling back down, looping back in. When it gets to the bottom, you kind of squeeze your pelvic floor a little bit, and then relax it as you breathe in. Let the belly pooch out a little bit, the lower abdomen. Draw the energy up, and let it fall. And then I want you to clasp your hands together. And then just take your hands and just reach up like this. And as you reach up, just elongate through and imagine all those energy channels inside your body, like that vascular system of energy flowing channels. And then as you go down, we're going to breathe out through the nose and then just bend down and let it go down your back, down your arms, all the way down toward the floor. You don't have to touch the floor. And then you're going to come back up Breathing in and expand up, 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 and then drop it down. And then bring it up again in through the nose. Kind of bend your knees a little, push up through your quads, elongate up through your arms, stretch out, opening up those channels, and then drop it down. All the way out through the nose, and then draw it up. Bend the knees, expand, and then come back down. Now, just stand there for a moment, and you're opening up these channels, and you might feel a little more buoyancy, a little more spaciousness, a little more lightness in your body. So now we're going to help kind of de-densify the body. It help those energy, all those little rivulets and those 72,000 plus nadis like open up and ripple out. So I want you to just start to do this. You're going to start to bounce like this and just let your shoulders relax, let your fingers and your hands relax. And then as you bounce like this, breathe in through your nose, and you're going to draw energy up, 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 all the way up to the top of your crown, and you're going to let it out like make a little sigh or a moan. And then breathe it up and draw it up again. Bounce it up, and then let your shoulders relax, and then send it back down into the earth, down through your legs, down through your feet, the bottoms of your feet. Feel the earth beneath you, and then draw up, 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 up. Shoulders relaxed, and then let it out. Good. Now, just pause for a moment, stand still, and then drop your weight and your energy and your focus down into the earth, into your legs. And let your head be held up as if a little thread or a string of energy is pulling the back of your head up, and your whole spine is dangling from that thread or string of energy. And then your weight drops down into your pelvis, down into your quads, down into your knees, and into your feet. And as you're feeling that, know that your feet are connected. And if you're barefoot right now, the electrons in the earth are going right into your body. You are literally getting the bioelectric charge and the life force energy of the earth. And even if you have shoes on, you can just visualize it. Draw the energy up through the soles of your feet. Breath in, up through that central channel, up, up, up through the top of the crown. Hold it for a moment at the top, and then let it out. Good. And then we're going to do one final thing, and this is just going to bend over like this, and you're going to let your arms go into like an egg beater motion, like this. And just let your shoulders relax, and let the circles or spirals, remember those spirals in the egg, spirals in the atmosphere, spirals everywhere around us and within us, and let those spirals go through your shoulders and out, and all the tension that's in your upper shoulders, upper neck. Let your head hang in through the nose and out through the nose, and just let it all go down through your hands, through your arms, and then just slowly come back up, slowly come back up, slowly come back up. Good. How's that feel? Good. All right, so those are channels. So we're just starting to put the focus on the activation on energy channels within the body. Qigong is a great way to do it because it gets you thinking about and feeling that, hey, there's space. I can travel with my mind through my body, and I can find those channels. When we link those channels up with the activation of those fields, it starts to give us this very interesting interface that we're going to work with in a moment that a lot of people miss. They're either working with energy in here or they're working with the energy out here, but it's that interface where the body and the those channels within the body meet that is really critical. And the way that they connect up is the next piece. So you can sit back down for a moment because we're going to go into the next element here, which is the third part of the energy system, which is, let me get that, which is the energy centers. So the energy centers, also known as chakras, they have different names in different cultures, but most of us know them as chakras, are these interfaces between the fields and the channels. So the energy interface between the fields around us and the channels within us are these energy centers. And they operate like transducers. And what a transducer does is it transfers one form of energy into another form of energy that's usable in the system. So what you're doing is you're stepping down all this energy and information in the field around you so it's usable in your system, usable in your material system in the body. And so this has been talked about and taught for many thousands of years in many different cultures, that there are these energy centers, these energy channels, these energy fields all around us. And these energy centers are described as kind of often written or shown, depicted as these flowers, these many-petaled flowers. And these flowers, when this is out of Ledbetter, who's one of the famous, like, anyone ever read that? Any chakra people in here? No. Okay. Well, so this was in the early 1900s, and this was an intuitive person that could see. They could see the chakras. They could see all these energy centers, and this is what they describe them: spinning wheels of energy. So when you look down at the chakra, at these vortexes that are going through the front and back of the body, they look like a spinning wheel when you look at them from direct on. But what is really fascinating, because the chakras have been associated with organs and different systems of the body for millennia, that recently, and this is published in Nature, one of the most prestigious scientific journals, this was just from this year, these researchers were looking at the organization and the formation of all the organs in the body. And they were puzzled because they're saying, wow, every organ is starting out as a vortex. And it's starting out as a vortex, and then what starts to happen is the cells start to organize into these three-dimensional structures around these vortices of energy, but we don't know where these vortexes are coming from. So what it appears, and from my experience and from thousands of years of people's experience, that those energy centers are some kind of organizing blueprint or organizing transducer of forces from the fields around us, or the blueprint that's helping organize the cells and structures of our body. And if we can interface with those and start to work with those, then we can start to more easily channel the energies that are all around us and within us back and forth between the environment and ourselves more freely. And that could have all kinds of benefits for our health, for our body, for our relationships, and all these levels, because each of these areas is associated with different aspects of our lives. And that's where the energy blueprint comes in, and that's what I'm going to take you into now. So I experience these and see these, and I have a feeling that some of you are going to have this experience as we begin to work with this week, that these are like portals. They're like wormholes. They're interdimensional wormholes between non-physical realities and the physical material. That these energy centers, as they interface with these fields around us, operate like a wormhole into another aspect of our consciousness and our being. And when we start to work with these and access these, it's amazing how rapidly patterns can shift and change, and how we can go to really deep, deep places. So we're going to be working with these fields, and these fields are going to be connected to these centers, and these centers are going to be connected to these channels. And these field centers and channels are located where the centers are predominantly located are in the root. So this is like also known as the first chakra, or the root, and it has two different sort of funnels to it. In the root, a lot of people, we know that, okay, the root, the center chakra, that anyone who knows or has worked with chakras, it's like you have a chakra, you have a root chakra that's going down, up and down through the pelvic floor. But there's also an element of it that goes through the front and back as well. There's two elements to that. The second is at about the sacral level. This is tied into the sexual organs. It's tied into our creativity. It's tied into our passion. It's tied into our ability to procreate. It's tied into our passionate engagement with our emotional system. The third is tied into the solar plexus. It's more tied into the part of the mind that focuses. It's tied into the will, the part of us that creates boundaries and structure. Then you have the fourth, which ties into the heart. I call that the relational. It connects into our ability to receive and give in relationship and intimacy. The fifth is the throat area, right? This is associated with our ability to, in a way, speak or project our higher, in a way, values and truths, right? And then we have the sixth, which is connected, it's called the ajna in Sanskrit, but it is the part of us that's connected to that knowing. A lot of times it's called the third eye. The third eye is actually a complex between that area here, the heart, and the crown. So when the third eye is activated, the heart, the crown, and this area are all activated together. And we'll do some exploration with that too this week. And then you have the seventh, which is the crown, and that is sometimes called the thousand-petaled lotus. It's this like expansion that goes out beyond the top of the head. And those are the centers where this influx of energy and this expression outward of energy connects with those fields and draws that energy in and sends it back out, so it's usable in the body, but it's also projected back into the fields around us. So we're going to start. We have enough time. We're going to work with this whole complex right now. You ready for that? Yeah. So we're going to work with the fields, channels, and the centers. And we're going to work with, so wherever I have you touch, and the reason I had you do this interface and touch and feel the difference between touching physically and then touching, not touching, and then the interface where it's like you're touching, but you kind of feel that connection still. You feel their physical body, but then you also feel the space or you feel the energy, is because I'm going to have you do that with your own body. And it's important because we want to make sure that we're not just skating across the surface, that we get that sense of a little more of that vortex or that depth, that funnel. Because these centers are funnels that are burrowing through and they're expanding out beyond. They're not just like little points and they're not just like something out here. They're an interface. And we can follow them all the way in and we can follow them all the way out like a wormhole through our body. And so we're going to work with those centers, channels, and fields. And I want to just quickly show you what those 7 levels or layers are. Remember I said it's like kind of like those levels or layers of the fields are a bit like a rainbow where you have different frequencies that have different colors. These are the different frequencies that have a different consciousness and have a different effect and impact on our lives. And that is where we're going to get some traction here with working with this, because I want to help you take this kind of conceptual information and turn it into something that's utilizable for your daily life. And you go, oh, I need more life force energy here. That's the first layer, because I'm feeling really apathetic, I'm feeling really low, and I need to like rev up that life force energy, or I need to figure out why my life force energy is so low, and I need to resource it somehow. Emotional energy. Emotional energy is not just some like, we don't just have emotions that are somewhere in our brain. They're a full body experience, and they're also a field experience. You can feel when someone's like animated and passionate. You feel it in their field, right? They're charismatic. It's like, whoa, I feel you, right? So that emotion is a field that we're going to connect with. And that field requires sound and movement. Because if you don't have sound and movement, you don't really have emotional expression. I'm very angry. Right? 2 totally different things. I'm so happy. Oh my God. Right? They're 2, it's like one's expressed through the body and through your field, and the other is a flattened out, flat affect, we call it, right? So we want to make sure that when we work with these, we're activating those energies so that we can utilize them and feel like when they're there and when they're not there. We want it to be something that becomes alive for us, that energy isn't this abstract thing, but it's something that we utilize in our lives, and we know it, and we get to know these energies, and we're like, oh, that's that person's emotional energy. Oh, that person has this really amazing ability to create. They have a really amazing lower mind. They can like stay on task. They can meet. They can create boundaries. They can create structure. They can, they can say yes and no easily. Or that person has a challenged lower mind field and they can't, like commit to anything. They're all over the place. We're going to talk about these tomorrow, like what the different factors are related to each of these fields. I'm going to go in depth with them. Today we're just going to touch into them and experience, especially the life force. The relational field connects into the heart. But it's not just like your heart chakra, it's the field of relationship that goes beyond you. It's all relationship. It's all interaction with others that is for all people throughout all time, space, dimensions. It's all relationship. So there's a field of relationship. And if you're challenged in that area, it's like you have a difficult time receiving or you have a difficult time giving and you're wondering why it's not really working. If you can sort that out in your energetic field and start to learn, oh, this is what it feels like to receive there. Oh, this is what it feels like to give there. Suddenly, you can start to see the physical world around you change because now that's available to you. That energy is now available and that organizes your life differently. So then you have the higher mind. This group is a very higher mind kind of group. You get concepts, you get aspirational visions and ideas. People here are so creative. So this is a place where you can talk ideas. Someone who's challenged in this area is just can be like, I just don't get it. Or they can be so looped into the concept being the reality that they miss the depth of just being present because they're so in the concept of things. So you can have, if you're challenged there. Then you have the soul. The soul. It's like you just see someone, you go, I know you. I've known you for lifetimes. I don't know how it all works, but we're and there's a lot of that in this group, a lot of soul connection, right? So you just come up and you're just like, you don't even have to get to know that person. You're just like, I already know you. So let's just find out about your personality because I already know your soul, right? And then you have what I call the infinite, could be the universal, could be the non-dual, it could be God, it could be, source, whatever you call it, but it's that connection to the just infinite, the oneness. So we're going to be exploring and working with all of these fields, but right now we're going to do an exercise that is working specifically with the life force, the first level or layer that I had you feel here. But I'm going to have you go at it in some different ways, and in a moment I'll have you lay down and I get to guide you. I'm going to guide you through it. But for some people, they experience the life force as pixelated energy. Some people see it as a grid around them. It really isn't just like a cocoon around you. It's like actually the shape of your body. It's imagine like a fine cashmere sweater made of light filaments, right? Red, blue, whitish, red, or it could be a color for some of you. It could be visualized like or felt like heat waves, like when you see heat coming off the hood of a car. It could be like that for some people. It could feel like a charge, like where you go, whoa, wow, my whole body's filled with energy. It's like sometimes our life force is like, it's like shut off, and we start to kind of turn it on in an area of our body, and it's like all of a sudden that part's alive again. So it can feel like a hum or a buzz. It can have a magnetic quality. It can feel static. It can even have a smell. It can have an earthy smell where you're not like smelling it through your nose, but you're like, think of like the energy of like an aboriginal kind of like rhythm, a drum beat connected to the earth, barefoot. It's like it has that quality because it's the energy of the earth. It's the energy of life itself. It's the vital energy. Now the consciousness associated with this is pre-rational. So it's not a thought and it's not an emotion. It's purely vibrational. It's purely tones, buzzes, hums, motions. It's not even emotional. So when we're connecting to the life force, we're just about connecting to this, like filling the body with energy and feeling the aliveness of the body. All right? So I'll guide you through the process of doing this, and all you have to do is just lay down. All right?